All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel. So for today's video, we're gonna go ahead and go over. I'm sure everybody's heard about the Crowdstrike situation that happened that led to a global IT shutdown, and it messed a lot of things up. The main thing that we heard was about the different flights for the different airlines that weren't able to make their trips. A lot of things were canceled. A lot of flights were canceled with basically no notice. So we're going to go ahead and talk about the global IT shutdown that happened with CrowdStrike in the middle of it, and how Microsoft not necessarily played a role, but how they were affected as well. But before we do that, we're going to actually go over what CrowdStrike is, which I think would be beneficial because CrowdStrike is very big in the tech space, specifically in the cybersecurity space. Like if you want to work in cyber, it's very advantageous if you go ahead and get to know CrowdStrike. So we're going to go ahead and go over some basic history with CrowdStrike before we get into the real good part of the video. So again, a lot more people are familiar with the name CrowdStrike thanks to the global IT outage that they apparently caused. And unless you work mainly in cybersecurity, you probably don't know what CrowdStrike is. You probably don't interact with it that much, or any of the tools that they use. So it's pretty important in the landscape, but again, niched in cyber. And today we'll cover that basic history, starting with the beginnings of CrowdStrike. So CrowdStrike was a cybersecurity company, or is a cybersecurity company, currently based in Austin, Texas. It was founded in 2011 by George Kurtz, Dmitry Alperovich, probably just butchered that, and Greg Marston. CrowdStrike's goal was to develop a new approach to cybersecurity that could address sophisticated attacks that were beyond the capabilities of existing malware at the time. Their main focus is on endpoint security, which, for those who don't know, endpoints are basically the computer systems and things that we directly interact with. So anything that you receive some type of message or data on, phones, laptops in particular, but this does include printers, those are considered endpoints. You know, the very last stop when data is moving from one place to another, the data has to stop somewhere. There has to be a place that ultimately receives that data. That's an endpoint. So the founders aimed to revolutionize cybersecurity by focusing on proactive threat hunting and leveraging cloud-based technologies for rapid detection and response to security threats. We'll go over the threat hunting part at some point in the future. That is a concept I want to touch on, that I found very interesting when I was learning about cyber. Yeah, their vision was to just provide better detection for the different computer systems that both on an everyday level, but also on like a commercial level for these different companies, and just provide better detection for everyday computers that we all tend to use. Now, that was the beginnings of CrowdStrike, but in terms of today, obviously they're a big player in the game, which is why the global IT shutdown was a pretty big deal. CrowdStrike has grown rapidly over the last decade or so, while pursuing its goal of revolutionizing endpoint security and becoming a staple of proactive cybersecurity practices across multiple industries at that. Some of the major milestones that I took note of that I found pretty interesting, and who knows, this might be useful information for those who want to create their own cybersecurity firms at some point in the future. One of the things they did, they took part in high-profile investigations. So CrowdStrike gained significant attention for its involvement in high-profile cyber investigations. In 2014 in particular, the company was involved in investigating the Sony Pictures hack. There was a Sony Pictures hack that was attributed to North Korean hackers. They're the reason that it happened. And the investigation showcased CrowdStrike's capabilities and expertise in handling sophisticated cyber threats. So that's the situation that essentially put them on the map, helped their name gain a little more weight behind closed doors. Now, as far as threat intelligence, CrowdStrike also established itself as a leader in threat intelligence, which again, we'll go over that at some point in the future. And the main thing it did was it identified and attributed cyber attacks to specific hacker groups. So a good amount of the time in incident response, which their incident response people in cybersecurity are the people like, if you're a cybersecurity analyst or if you're a cybersecurity engineer, and I've heard this from a cybersecurity engineer, they can go sometimes weeks at a time without their jobs really doing much. I guess it depends on the company and how they work internally. When something happens, when they identify that, the company's been hacked and someone's trying to extract data from the company, whether it's customer information, trade secrets of the company, anything that's just like scrutinizing. That's when those people are sprung into action like superheroes. That's part of the incident response team for any given organization with those type of people on their team. It established itself as a leader when it came to threat intelligence and incident response, essentially. But the thing with incident response is that you don't necessarily always find out who did what. Your first priority is to shut down whatever that hacker or those hackers, including countries, are trying to do. And if you can figure out who it is, then cool. That's not usually, from my understanding, what I've been told is like top priority in those situations. You're just trying to protect the confidentiality of the data that your company has. But CrowdStrike was able to take it up a step, and they were able to attribute certain attacks to certain groups and or individuals. So not only would they help shut down certain events when companies were being hacked, they would actually be able to find out who did it and where. So it led to that's a pretty important detail to have. Primarily, or very often, like I said, they're tied to different countries. They're referred to as nation states. So different nation states or different countries, different governments that are trying to hack into what they believe are key companies with confidential information that they can make use of and stuff like that. CrowdStrike was pretty good there. So not only did they already take it a step further in terms of just identifying hackers in general and threats in general and where they were coming from, but they were often tied to other governments on top of that. So yeah, I can see why that helped them get like a real big name very quickly. The annual Global Threat Report became a respected source of information on cyber threats. That's CrowdStrike's report. So they became like a credible source of cybersecurity information. In 2015, CrowdStrike raised $100 million in a Series C funding round. Maybe some of my finance people, if anyone in finance or something sees that, they can let me know the significance of Series C. Maybe that's something I'll talk about as well at some point in the future. I did have some college classmates that ended up going into like acquisition and I want to say like trading jobs after college, and a good amount of the time, if not always, they had to get like a Series 7 certification, which is a finance-based certification, and I guess is required for certain positions. So I'm guessing Series C is also pretty important there. But yeah, CrowdStrike raised $100 million in a Series C funding round led by Google Capital, now known as Capital G. Its valuation, which brought its valuation, or how much the company is valued, near $1 billion. Yeah, so they were certified rich at that point. This investment underscored the growing importance of cybersecurity and the confidence investors had in CrowdStrike's approach and technology. So at this point, it solidified that people thought CrowdStrike was valuable, which when it comes to like the funding round, people are investing into the company, obviously to get long-term payment and equity into the company as well. So it benefits both sides, but the fact that the company was brought up to almost $1 billion in its overall value by people contributing to that value, like investors putting money into it, yeah, that says a lot about CrowdStrike's ability, or what people think or thought CrowdStrike was capable of in the direction it was already going, and they wanted a piece of that for however long it's going to be around. Now, as of 2024, with its current standing in the market, CrowdStrike is currently a leading player in the cybersecurity market, obviously, which is why this whole situation is a pretty big deal with their name attached. As of last year in 2023, it was recognized for its use of artificial intelligence to enhance cybersecurity measures, enabling faster incident detection, response, and automation of manual tasks. CrowdStrike continues to innovate with its Falcon platform, which offers comprehensive protection across various security domains, including endpoints, as we've already said, cloud workloads, identity protection, probably identity access management, and other things on top of that. So just to summarize it all up, that's the basic history of CrowdStrike. Where it came from initially, the name of the founders, where it currently stands, why it's a big name, therefore, again, why the whole global IT shutdown that they had a hand in is a pretty big deal. And yeah, I don't think it's like a nail in the coffin for them, but I think it's still a pretty big hit to their name. So while it's in a bit of trouble right now, I think it's still noteworthy that CrowdStrike is one of the fastest growing cybersecurity companies in the world right now, and has been for the past decade, with a huge name as a leader in a couple different spaces. So that's just the beginning as far as what CrowdStrike is. But let's go ahead and get into the actual global IT outage that CrowdStrike played a hand in. Let's get into the good part of this.